Hello there everyone, and today I'm going to be speaking about a specific topic in regards to PvP, and it's something I'm curious about that I'd like to hear other people's opinions on and so on, but essentially, and I'm also not sure how long I'll be able to talk about it for, so I've just lined up all my clips for this character that I've got so far, and we'll see where we get with it. So as I mentioned in my last video, this is my Empyrean build, which is a spear build, and it's literally all of its weapons are spears. And then it's just got two dark hands in the offhand, prepared to two offhand dark hands for toggle escaping when I ended up using the Leo ring instead of the wolf ring, which I believe I used for the majority of this video, if not all of it, since these clips are before the duels with Rapier. So, spears are one of the weapons which most of the time in PvP get a lot of hate. They get complained at. It's like this guy I'm fighting here, who I ruthlessly killed whilst he was trying to pack Crystal out. He invades again, you'll see that later, and he actually sent me a message with regards to I essentially sent him a message asking, am I that scary? And he just sent a single sentence, no, but spears are BS. Now, that's essentially the topic I want to talk about. Why is it that spears are so heavily hated in PvP? And, I've got, there's a lot of reasons behind why I think people do that, and then there's also a lot more reasons which I think that they're perfectly fine, and a bit of lag there. So spears. So the common reasons why people seem to complain about spears is probably first of all the sort of people who normally use them. Here I forgot to take my spear out. But yeah, so the normal people who use them, it's normally considered a very easy weapon to use, because of the fact that you can attack with the spear whilst you've got a shield up. So because you're able to attack whilst you've got a shield up, it becomes a very easy weapon, because you can attack people, poke them without the risk of hurting yourself. And simultaneously, you've got the chance to get counter damage because it's a thrusted weapon. And as with all thrust weapons, if you hit somebody after an attack, or whilst they're warming up to an attack, I think, is in some cases, I can't remember exactly, but you can get counter damage, which does quite a significant boost to damage, and if you're wearing the Leo ring, it does a ridiculous amount of damage afterwards. So yes. So there's that first of all. However, so the spear itself, the next thing that the spear's often frowned upon for is because it's got a long range. It's, literally that's what the point of a spear is. It's got that long range. You're able to attack at a distance, and that's mainly the point of the spear, and a lot of people end up forgetting that. And in the cases with PvP, I think it causes a lot of problems because of phantom range, since not only this guy was clearing out all of his junk, and I thought, oh, he's left it here, and then it took me a while to realise. But yeah, so yeah, so with phantom range taken into account, the spear can have some pretty ridiculous range. So, you know, I could hit someone who looks, you know, pretty close on my screen. On their screen, they could be miles away. And that's, you know, just one of the downsides when it comes to how the, you know, how the PvP is set up, how lag is calculated and all that. But yeah, so range is another thing. And I'd say probably the third thing is there's such a limited amount of attacks you can do with a spear. It's like if you take the standard spear for example, your attacks are literally poke with the R1 or longer poke with the R2. Or if you've got a shield up, it's, you know, a very short poke, but with the shield up at the same time. So, and literally the only variation from that is after a roll. You've got two different attacks after a roll, either a downwards smash like so, which is the result of, yeah, which is when you're one-handing it, or if you're two-handing it, you do a swipe upwards. So that's the spear in a nutshell. So, whilst yes, there are, you know, these variations such as the Silver Knight spear, the Partisan, and the Pike, which have a bit more variety in their attacks. They are pretty limited. So most of the time, when you encounter people, they'll literally all they've got is, you know, spear spam, and you know, you've got to try and, you know, trying to moderate that in when you're using it in duels, as opposed to how most people consider it as a newbie's weapon or a ganking weapon, since you know, if you've got two people, you know, one person with a great sword, one person with a shield, it can be pretty impressive like that. So, but yeah. Also, other things are, have I covered everything with that? No, I think then the only other thing is literally the thrust damage with the Leo ring is when it starts doing a considerable amount of damage. But there's, you know, so these are the main reasons why I can think of which people don't like spears in PvP. There's level 1 invader. So the question is then, yeah. So then I want to go over, you know, the few things. If I've missed anything, please somebody say something, because, and I'll probably leave my thoughts on that as well. So, but here's an example. This you'll hear. This person's got a rapier, which is a thrusting sword. Now, its range isn't as good as the spear. However, what it does have that the spear does not is a critical damage bonus. So if you backstab someone, or riposte them, you get an extra, you know, an extra chunk of damage. So the rapier on critical attacks can do quite a considerable bit of damage, and they also can still get counter-attacks, and you can still poke from behind a shield. So with all of that in account, you know, it's got shorter range, it's got critical bonuses to do that, to increase that. It's got less damage, once again critical bonus for parries and riposts. So this fight actually annoys me a lot, because literally I backstabbed this person once after they tried cycling backstabbing, and that's still the only thing they tried to do. And after they eventually got it, it was, you know, it was really over. Because, yeah, that's yeah. Oh yeah, no, they then, yeah. So it does that because of that extra damage bonus. It causes a problem. Yet rapiers are often considered a lot more acceptable in PvP because they've not got quite as long of a range, and yeah, which doesn't seem fair at the same time, because literally range is the one difference, which range and a slight damage reduction, which is what the advantage of the it's got all the advantages of this spear except range, and that's replaced with the damage bonus for criticals, and the slightly reduced damage is still countered. You still can get counter damage, which can still increase it quite a bit. It's like even with other thrusting weapons, you can be doing tiny amounts of damage, but then all you need is a very well placed, a very well placed counterattack, or quite a few well placed counterattacks, and it can really change the tide. In fact, it's why if people try trading hits with a thrusting weapon, if the person with a thrusting weapon's got the Leo ring, in a lot of cases they can win, because the Leo ring counter damage, if they've got the timing right whilst trading blows, will do a lot more damage just because of that. Yeah, so another thing which I think is something that people miss is because spears only have that thrusting attack, there are very easy ways to defeat it. For example, rolling to the side instead of forward and backwards. Yeah, the probability of hitting them is very low, because it's another person with a rapier there. The probability of hitting them is very low because they've only got a straight line thrust. It's like the number of times I've been able to hit people in an instability frames because they tried rolling back away from the spear, as opposed to the side where they'd easily be able to clear it. Then another thing is holding up your shield, and this is something which in a lot of high level PvP or duels, a lot of people consider if you hold your shield up and constantly. And I just want to say to this person, if you're going to use a shield, if you're going to use the Dark Hand, don't hold it up constantly as a shield, because its stability is terrible. So yeah, but if you do just hold it up as a shield against the spear, it often will stop it quite a bit, because it doesn't deal a lot of damage to stamina. It deals a fair bit of damage to stamina, especially when it's two-handed, but it's not going to do enough that it's going to, that you're going to be sent flying, and then get a hit whilst you're recovering stamina from blocking every hit. And so yeah, it's essentially that in a nutshell. And the Demon Spear, it's if you got that hit on the R2, it was priceless, but it was just so slow. And I died there because it didn't kick when it was meant to. But yeah. So I'm now about halfway through the video and running out of things to say. So So personally, I still want to hear why other people have problems why other people have problems with spears. Because the spear, it's still got its pros and it's still got its cons, just as most weapons do. I mean, you can't yeah, you can't play unlocked with it for anything. It's literally your range of unlocked attacks. And in fact, the one attack with the spear I would recommend using unlocked is the R2, the one-handed R2 on on the Silver Knight spear, because you can dead angle with that very well. The partisan has that slight ranged bit, but it's not any considerable amount. And maybe if you rolled towards someone and they rolled towards you and you both ended up behind each other, maybe unlocking there and trying to get behind, because if you're attacking from behind and you're locked on, you're only going to turn halfway around before you attack. But unless you've got really good skills playing unlocked, you can't really use a pierce weapon as such unlocked. It's very difficult to do. So and a lot of the spears still play the same, relatively the same. As the very little differences between each spear. I think, because whilst using this build I tested out quite a few. There's the partisan, which has its one-handed R2, which is quite a small, quite a relatively small AoE along the side. It's literally just a slap. It's literally just a very small frontal attack with the R2. The R1s are still pokes. Here's that's the Demon Spear. It takes absolutely ages to launch, but it's got that forward momentum and it can send people flying if you get hit. However, it's not. The Silver Knight Spear's got the one-handed R2, which does quite a massive swipe, and the two-handed R2 does a long-range poke, as with most spears do. The pike, I believe, does a charge. The Dragon Slayer Spear probably has the most unique one, because it shoots lightning with the one-handed R2, and with the two-handed R2 it does a two-part combo where, as seen by Ornstein in the boss fight, where he just, in fact I might use it in one of the later clips here, I'm not sure. So yeah, I was even asked by someone else when they were fighting against people the other day, they said, why is it that people suddenly get ridiculously defensive when a spear comes out? And his example was he had people who would buff with Sunlight Blade or something, and then he'd pull out a spear, and then as soon as he did that, they just stop charging towards him and stop running away trying to. And I think it is a psychological thing for the most part, because most people have got used to spears being spears being a commonly used weapon for gankers and for cheap tactics, because especially with it can stun lock quite effectively against people with low poise. It's most people go over the 50 bracket, so it takes 2 hits, but with two-handing it, but it is possible. And that's another thing. I knew I missed something with regards to fighting spears. There's 2 ways to really effectively counter them in combat. And first of all, if you can outrange it with a bow or crossbow, I've not seen someone try outranging it with the crossbow as such, but I know it was possible because it's the same with the bow. But the bow is probably the more effective one because you can get that range first, and then from that distance, from that distance, you're able to wind back the bow and wait for them to come in, and you'll be able to get that shot quite easily. From a crossbow, you probably would have to wait for them to attack with a bow, attack with a spear, and be out of range to be able to get that shot in. So who knows? It's probably a mix of both. So let's see. Yeah, so he was saying that people were playing defensively and, you know, just trying to avoid encountering the spear, and I think it's psychological because of the places it's commonly used. It's often, you know, it's often considered a very. No, I think I may not have used the Dragon Slayer spear, but he definitely did. And if actually, here's a hint: if you're using the Dragon Slayer spear whilst fighting here, if you hit lightning into the water, it sends shockwaves, and you can actually hit people like that, or even get kills. I fought Suicide Frog here, and I did that, and I was able to get a hit with him there when most of the time I wasn't able to get a hit in anywhere. Yes, there we go. That was the Partisan R2. So still got a little bit of horizontal potential, but not in comparison to the Silver Knight Spear. So another thing with this build is whilst playing without a shield, it's also quite limiting with the spear, because I've not got the advantage of holding up a shield where you know, I've probably got enough to block one swing with a dark hand, or maybe two depending on the weapon, and that's it. And it also pushes me back. So, oh, sorry, I've trying to end, but yeah, so that's a disadvantage that this builds at, which is quite limiting on a spear, because it's, you know, and that's probably one of the things that people have the problem with the most, because even though the range when you've got the shield up is shorter than even when you've got the shield up and the range is shorter than normal, it's still quite a fair bit of range, and you've also got that defensive thing used. And then, yeah, I think this person is actually this person here. Yeah, the audio may be slightly out of sync because I've realised I've not actually put the transition in between each fight. But I think this guy here is one of the ones who, you know, manages to finish me up with a bow because he, you know, he pulled it out and got ready. But yeah, the other way that it works quite well is if you oh no, this guy wasn't it. Yeah, but another way that you can fight people quite well with the spears if you get in close range with them, because, you know, if not trading blows, don't try trading blows with it. If they've got the Leer ring, then it's probably not wise to trade blows. If you've got a very heavy weapon, then trade blows will go ahead. But yeah, if you're at close range with a spear, it's quite easy to parry. And because of it's, you know, it's easy to parry at close range. In fact, I think that might be one of the reasons why at high level PvP people may have a bit of a problem with it, because if you attack at range, you know, they can't parry it. You know, the distance is too far for it to count as a parry, so they maybe get a partial parry, but they're not going to get full parry. here's another fight which I think went quite interesting, because this person kept trying to cast Emit Force, and you know, they failed a lot because I was able to just poke them with a spear straight through it. And I was really fortunate for them to miss with the Wrath of the Gods. I have no idea how that ended up happening, but... So, let's see. There's still a few more clips to go, but I think that it may be a bit shorter depending on the how much is taken out by the transitions. So I think I'll leave it here, and please, if you've got any thoughts in regard to shields, you know, whether or not sorry, not shields, with spears. With regards to spears, whether or not they're really as cheap as they're often made out to be, or whether you consider, or whether you think that spears, you know, spears are fine, and the problem is because they're of this reputation they've ended up getting, that they're often considered bad, because that's another thing. You even see the Boulder's side sword getting used everywhere because of its rolling R1s, which can get that counter damage quite effectively, and also the R2s, which are incredibly deadly. I fought someone, I think I'll probably get a video of it, but I was doing a tiny amount of damage with the R1s, and then with the R2s I was just actually starting to deal out damage. But yes, I shall leave it there. There's only a couple of clips left, so I shall let them continue playing, and maybe it'll even be one once I've added the transitions, but I don't know. So, and until next time, goodbye.